Are you tired of feeling like your stomach has its own agenda? Like the bloating, gas, or constant trips to the bathroom are running your life? Welcome to the Beyond Bloated podcast, the podcast where we tackle those frustrating gut issues head on, without strict diets or giving up your favorite foods. I'm Carly, a certified gut health coach who's been there, struggling with bloating that made me look 6 months pregnant, gut pain that kept me from enjoying meals, and fatigue so draining it felt impossible to get through the day. Now, I help women like you find freedom from those symptoms and take back control of their lives. Each week, we'll debunk gut health myths, dive into simple, actionable tips, and hear stories from women who've been exactly where you are. It's time to feel confident, energized, and bloat-free. Let's get started. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Beyond Bloated podcast, or welcome for the very first time. This episode is dedicated to my gluten-free gang in honor of Celiac Awareness Month. I still vividly remember the day that I was told I had to eliminate gluten from my diet. I had a mental breakdown. I was bawling my eyes out in my kitchen because everything that I ate contained gluten. I didn't know how to cook. I ate a lot of takeout. Everything I did cook came from a box. So I was filled with gluten, and I literally thought I was going to starve to death when I was told, you can't eat any of this anymore. I thought that's the only way to eat. If I can't eat all of my packaged gluten products, what am I supposed to eat? When I did discover that there were gluten-free versions of most foods, that helped me feel better emotionally, but it didn't help me feel better physically. And that is because so many of the gluten-free options out there today are so highly processed and filled with tons of gut-disrupting ingredients like artificial flavors, colors, and sweeteners. Today's guest had a similar experience, but instead of shelling out an outrageous amount of money for a subpar product, she decided to make a better-for-you option that also satisfies the taste buds. Carolyn Haeler is the founder of Mightylicious, a gluten-free cookie business that uses simple, real ingredients in all of her products. In our conversation today, Carolyn will share with us her experience of being diagnosed with celiac disease and how that ultimately led her to leave her comfortable finance job to create a gluten-free cookie business. So without further ado, let's give a big, warm welcome to Carolyn Haeler. Thank you so much for joining us on the Beyond Bloated podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm excited for you to be here as well. So I like to start our episodes off by giving the guest the spotlight. So could you let us know a bit about your story, how you discovered you have celiac disease, and then how that led you to create your business, Mightylicious?
Yeah, I was diagnosed with celiac disease in 2012. I had just turned 31. It was a long process to get the diagnosis. My symptoms sort of started earlier that year with just a little bit of indigestion, I would say, and something that was just making me uncomfortable and was abnormal. I had a symptom I never had before. My doctors thought it was probably some sort of food allergy, so they started testing me. They tested for dairy, for gluten, for eggs, all the things that are pretty normal, and they all came back negative. Fast forward about 9 months, my immune system was failing. My hair was falling out. My skin had turned gray. My stomach was distended and bloated. I was exhausted and miserable and really struggling. They finally did a endoscopy and found the antibodies in my blood and diagnosed me. And it was a relief to have the diagnosis because I was struggling so much. And sort of went on this journey on figuring out how to heal my body from within. And immediately, because I tried gluten-free before, but because we didn't know what the diagnosis was, I wasn't being strict enough about it, was learning about what gluten is and all the different things that it can be in. And so it was right before Thanksgiving, in 2012. And I was just like, I'm not going to eat anything that doesn't come off a tree. Isn't actually like physically removed from an animal, so that I know that there's nothing else in it. And within 48 hours, so many of my symptoms had reversed. Not all of them. It takes a while to heal your body, but the pinkness came back into my cheeks. My energy levels rebounded immediately. I felt, 1,000 times better. And so I started learning about gluten and realized it's really hard to do a gluten elimination diet because it is in everything. It is a color. So it's in things, it's coloring, it's in caramel color, which is added to a lot of foods like Coca-Cola, it's in ginger ale, it's in a lot of baked goods, and it's in almost anything that's brown or tan, which is most things in the grocery store. It's used as a preservative, so it can be in things like turkey and ham in the refrigerated section. And it's also used as a filler. So I've even been glutened by cinnamon before because they can use trace amounts of gluten in spices like cinnamon and cumin or nutmeg or anything and not put it on the label. And I am so sensitive that if I, have a sprinkle of cinnamon that has gluten in it, I will react in 180 seconds.
Wow. So how did you find that out? Like that there is trace amounts of gluten in things like cinnamon and caramel color because it's not on the label. So how did you discover that?
Absolutely not. Well, I found it out because I purchased some cinnamon from Costco. The ingredients said, cinnamon, period.
Mhm.
And I was sprinkling it on my cappuccino in the morning. So that's like how little amount of cinnamon I was consuming. It was just like a sprinkle. And every morning I was getting indigestion and just feeling terrible and getting a headache and I had bloating and just, nauseous and all these things. And I was like, what am I doing? I'm not even
Mm.
doing anything. And then I stopped using the cinnamon and figured out that it was a cinnamon. I was familiar that they use it as a filler. Once I started doing research, I realized that there are all these ways that gluten products are used in food manufacturing. It's in soy sauce because they ferment the soy sauce with wheat. All these different types of foods contain gluten. And so I started having to be really strict about my diet. I mean, I can't eat anything unless it's certified gluten-free or it's sort of a whole real food, non-processed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was living with celiac disease, as you do, for about 5 years, I guess 4 or 5 years. And my previous career was in finance. So I was working in New York City down on Wall Street and living comfortably. But when you remove things like bread and pasta and muffins and bagels from your diet, you lose a lot of convenience in your life. And I'm hurrying to work in the morning. I could grab a banana or a yogurt, but a yogurt requires, like a spoon and to sit down. And I would often have to eat salad for lunch. And I love salad, but eating a salad is a lot more involved than just having a sandwich or grabbing a bagel, things like that. And all of those things sort of add up in your life, especially when you're getting up at 5 a.m. and not getting home until after the sun is set. You realize how important those conveniences are in your life. Like grabbing a sandwich is a huge convenience. It makes life a lot more manageable and easy. And you get to have a whole balanced meal that's both filling and nutritious if you can just grab a sandwich. Obviously, there are gluten-free bread and things like that, but I found that a lot of the products on the market were not appetizing. Even today, it's really hard to find a good gluten-free bread that A, tastes good and is going to not be dry and stale, but B, also isn't going to disintegrate by the time you eat it. I'm sure you've had that experience before. If you're
Oh,
making
yeah.
sandwich at 5 a.m. and eating it around, noon, it's not the same sandwich later in the day. I was still working in finance. I was Christmas shopping one day and I hadn't eaten all day. It was like 3 p.m. and I was online because it was Christmas time. So there's like 100 people in front of me and I was just starving. And there was a package of gluten-free cookies in front of me. And I just grabbed them off the shelf and took a bite. And this cookie was so not appetizing that I spit it out. And I looked at the package and I was like, I'm going to have to spend $10 on this package of cookies and I'm going to throw them out before I leave the store. And that was it. That was like the moment that I was like, you know what? I can do better. I am going to make a gluten-free cookie and it's going to taste good and I'm going to figure it out. And I did. I spent 3 months in my studio apartment testing recipes. I came up with 3 recipes that I thought were really good. And also one of the things that's different about baking at home commercially or trying to create a retail product is it has to be repeatable. You have to be able to make the exact same cookie over and over again. And that is a whole nother level of like intensity in baking because you have to not just be like, you don't use measuring cups anymore. You're weighing everything down to the gram to ensure that
Yeah.
you're creating a replicable product. And I had a great product that I can make over and over again that I was really happy with. And I'd been selling at farmers markets. So I bought some tintype coffee bags off of Amazon, just some craft tintype coffee bags. And I designed some labels and a logo and I put it on the bag and I put the cookies inside and I walked into the Whole Foods on 86th Street. And I was just looking for like feedback, which, you learn in business school, create a product, a prototype, get feedback, refine the prototype, get more feedback. So I walked into this Whole Foods. I was just looking for feedback. I went to the information booth and the woman there said, go talk to Chris behind the counter at the bakery section. He's the team leader and he will give you feedback. So I went. Chris was behind the cakes and I was like, hi, I have these gluten-free cookies. I make gluten-free cookies. And he tasted them and he said, that's the best gluten-free cookie I've ever tasted. Go down to Union Square in Brooklyn. We sell more gluten-free products than any other Whole Foods in New York. And if the team leaders ask for the team leader likes them, we can all email the regional office and they will onboard you. They might onboard you to our Forager program. This was on a Thursday and I was being onboarded by Monday.
Holy, that must be one delicious cookie.
Right. So I was completely unprepared because I was, baking like 12 cookies at a time in my 24-inch oven in my studio apartment in Manhattan. And I needed a commercial facility and you need a food handler's license, you need insurance, you need all sorts of licenses and things to like actually be able to sell commercially to the public. Fortunately for me, it takes about 6 months to get onboarded to Whole Foods. So I had a bunch of time to find a commercial facility and get my licenses and get all my ducks in a row. And we officially, this was July of 2017, and officially were on the shelf of Whole Foods January of 2018.
Hey everyone, Carly here. If you are tired of feeling bloated and uncomfortable, which I know you are, I have something that can really help. My free ultimate guide to bloat busting. I've been there myself, and I know how frustrating it is to try super restrictive diets and expensive supplements without getting results. If those methods were going to work, they would have worked by now. That's why I created this guide to offer you a different approach. In the ultimate guide to bloat busting, you'll learn techniques to listen to your body and eat with intention, avoiding overeating and choosing foods that truly benefit you, tips for proper hydration to support digestion and reduce bloating, a guide to delicious foods that promote a healthy gut and how to easily incorporate them into your meals, and effective methods to manage stress, which plays a huge role in gut health. These simple, practical strategies can make a big difference in your daily life, helping you feel lighter, more energized, and comfortable in your own skin. Ready to ditch the bloat without strict diets or costly supplements? Download your free copy today at beyondbloated.com/ultimate-guide and start your journey to a bloat-free life. Now, let's get back to it. Wow, that's quick moving. That gets you in gear for sure. It's like you don't have time to procrastinate.
No.
We're doing this. Let's go. That's amazing,
I had
though.
this idea of cookies, and then I was like, oh, I have a customer, a really big customer. I mean, I started out really small. We started in 3 Whole Foods in Manhattan, and then within like 6 months, we grown to 10 Whole Foods, which was all the Whole Foods in the area of Manhattan. And then by 2019, during COVID, we expanded to 2 regions, the Northeast and North Atlantic. So for the entirety of 2017 and 2018, I was making everything by hand in Queens. I was renting out commercial space from a kitchen. There's like commercial kitchens that a lot of caterers use in Manhattan. So you can rent the space by the hour or the day. So I'd bake on the weekends. And then we moved to a commercial facility in 2019 in New Jersey. And that's where we still are.
Well, congratulations. That's, first of all, very badass because you took your celiac diagnosis and ran with it. I mean, you made the changes, you started to feel better, but then you were like, hey, there's a gap here. I can't have delicious treats. One of my philosophies is you should never feel restricted because of your diagnosis or because of your health conditions. Like I myself am gluten-free. I'm also dairy-free. And I eat all the same foods that I used to eat, just the better versions of them. So I eat the cookies and the cakes and the pizzas. I just eat better versions. So the fact that you saw this gap and you're like, hey, I can't have gluten anymore, but that doesn't mean I can't still have a delicious cookie. And because it didn't exist where you were, you made one and you made a successful business out of it. You now have left your finance job. This is your career. Would you say like celiac disease kind of was a good thing that happened to you in the sense?
Yeah, I mean, kind of. It's still a struggle, as you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it definitely, I had always known that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. It's sort of something that I just know I am. They say that entrepreneurs are born. It was something since business school that I wanted to do, but I didn't have the idea. And so the celiac disease and sort of living that lifestyle, I was like, this is a huge gap. And it's not just cookies, it's a lot of products are less than appealing or palatable for the gluten-free audience because we are a captive consumer. We don't really have any other choices. And I've also learned a lot about the manufacturing process and also sourcing and ingredients and why gluten-free products are so hard to make and why they are so expensive. That is something I've certainly learned through this process. It is not an easy thing to do, but it is possible. And so I agree. I think that whenever I would have a terrible gluten-free product, because I was diagnosed at 31 and I'd eaten all the cake and all the pasta and all the cookies and, had the pies. And I have been fortunate enough to live abroad and had like a real croissant. And I would always like eat something of really just like, oh, I can't even swallow that. And then realize that there are kids who are diagnosed with celiac disease almost at birth or really young. And so they've never had like a real brownie. They don't even know if these foods are the foods that they've been eating, they don't even know what a brownie or a cupcake should taste like. And that always like really gets me. So as I was creating the packaging and my logo, it was really important to me because also in the US, especially, a lot of the packaging out there is very trite. It's a lot of like old man faces or like big blue block letters on a white background. That's what we sort of get as merchandising and branding. And it was really important to me that my product was palatable and made for an adult because a lot of the new products are actually designed by a parent for kids, but without any fun logos or anything fun about the packaging. And I wanted the product to be palatable for an adult because the needs of an adult and the needs of a child are very different. And the palate of an adult and the palate of a child are very different. So I wanted it to be palatable for adults and engaging for adults, but I really wanted kids to feel included because kids like cookies. They don't care if, how sophisticated the cookie is. And so I wanted there to be a really fun logo, which is why we have the unicorn logo on our packaging so that like it's really engaging and fun. And it's like I had kids in mind, but like grown men and adults, women, all love the unicorn logo. It's like very not gender or age specific, but it's certainly a lot more fun than someone's face. So
I agree. I would buy a unicorn cookie for sure. That's a big selling factor. And you're also right about the fact that us gluten-free folk are kind of cornered into just buying what's available
even available. Like you're lucky if it's even available at the store sometimes that they actually have an option. You definitely oftentimes don't have a choice.
Exactly. So you don't have a choice. And then when you do have a choice, it's like, this is the choice. Maybe there's two choices. You're paying a lot of money for that choice. And a lot of times I find myself doing this. Like if I go out to a restaurant or a cafe and they have a gluten-free option, I'm like, oh my God, I can eat that. So I buy it. And as you mentioned, it's subpar. It's loaded with ingredients that probably aren't the best for me. I'm eating it and I'm like, I could probably make this better myself. So we get tricked in a way. It's like we are so restricted sometimes when we go out that when we see an option, we buy it because it's the option that we can have. So how did you make your product in a way that it's delicious, but it also is gut supportive? Because you mentioned like eating well is important for you with celiac disease. You like eating from plants and from animals and things like that. So how did you come up with the ingredients and how are they gut supportive for people as well?
Good question. Yeah. So my focus is to make something that's delicious and indulgent. So this is not a health food. And I just want to put that out there. This is not placed vegetables or salad or any of those things. This is a dessert. But everything, the way that I made it taste good and be better for you is by using real ingredients. So I created this in my kitchen and my grocery store was Whole Foods. So you can make you can't because I won't tell you how to do it, but you can make my cookies in your kitchen because I did. Like there's no crazy ingredients. There's no preservatives. Some of my cookies, like my peanut butter cookie, has 5 ingredients. It's peanut butter, salt, sugar, eggs, and vanilla. There's nothing else in it. All things you can pronounce. We use really high quality ingredients. So grade A butter, of course, is for our vegan products, sustainably sourced palm oil, organic cage-free eggs, all of those things. And those using organic cage-free eggs makes a huge difference. Like we've as you know, there are oftentimes shortages of eggs. Sometimes you have to use if you can get whatever you get your hands on. And man, the other eggs don't even work. I mean, there's such a huge disparity. In fact, we were using the best eggs we could get our hands on. So they were frozen, we usually get them refrigerated. So we were using these frozen eggs and I was like, they looked like Chips Ahoy. And I was like, I get it now. I get it why that looks like that.
Quality for sure.
It's
That
the
makes sense.
quality. Yeah. So normally our cookie has a lot of crumb in it, meaning there's big air pockets because
Mhm.
we use the highest quality protein we can in the eggs. And if you don't have high quality protein in your baked good, you get this really tight crumb, these really small little air pockets, and that's a Chips Ahoy. I was like, ah, yeah, I've learned a lot. So we use really high quality ingredients. We only use real ingredients. We don't use any preservatives. And then the way that we make a really excellent cookie, there are two things that I wanted to solve in the cookie situation. Cookie gluten-free is often gritty, like you bite it and it sort of has a sandy feel. It'll be gritty and then it will be chalky. So you get grittiness and then you're like, oh, that's like clay. And then there will be a bitter aftertaste, right? So the whole experience from like beginning to end is less than appetizing. And I wanted to fix all of that. And what I realized was that it's the flour. It's a flour blend. First of all, gluten-free flour blends all have different ingredients often. You have no idea, like they're not interchangeable because they often have very different ingredients. But usually it's a combination of a rice flour, an ancient grain like sorghum, millet, or amaranth, and then a gum like xanthan gum. And it could be any combination. And then a starch, so tapioca starch, potato starch, cornstarch. And that creates the blend. It can be any sort of variety or combination of any of the things I just mentioned, including a dozen other types of ingredients. But there's two things to know. Rice flour in the US is not milled for baking, it's milled for cooking. So it's milled very grainy, which is where that graininess comes from. Almost like when you look at the rice flour, and I buy rice flour by the truckload. So we're talking like 10 metric tons of flour at a time. And I still can't get it milled fine enough, at least commercially. And then sorghum flour, which is the most commonly added ingredient to baked goods, tastes like tar when you bake it. So that's where that bitter, acrid aftertaste comes from. It's from the ancient grain. And I have nothing against ancient grains. They're lovely with chicken and asparagus, but they shouldn't be in a cookie because of cookie, the only flavor you have in the cookie is the butter, which is a very delicate flavor. It's just a little bit of saltiness and a little bit of dairy, and then vanilla. And vanilla is basically a perfume. So you're taking this bitter, acrid flavor and you're competing it with a perfume. Who's going to win? The tar is going to beat the perfume. And so you really shouldn't, in my opinion, bake with ancient grains. You can eat them if you want to, but they're going to definitely impact the palatability of your cookie or your brownie or whatever you're making. So I wanted to create a flour blend that didn't have an ancient grain and that wasn't gritty or grainy. And I developed one. I developed two. I have a gluten-free one and a vegan blend for two different cookies. And what we do is we work directly with mills in California. We work with the farmers as a co-op. And then we work with a mill to mill our flour to a spec so that it looks like cornstarch. So it's super soft and pillowy, and you're able to just make a cookie the way cookie is meant to be. And the only ingredients are our flour blend, which is rice-based, so it's very neutral. It's not gritty or grainy because we've milled it to a fine powder. And then the rest of the ingredients are vanilla, butter, sugar, baking soda, and salt. So it's just a cookie. And so it's better for you. And then we also have vegan flavors because I figured out how to bake vegan, which baking gluten-free and vegan is very hard. So now we have 4 flavors that are not only gluten-free, but they're also dairy-free and egg-free. So if you have multiple allergies, you can eat them and they taste our 2 of our top 3 flavors are vegan. So our vegan oatmeal coconut is our top selling flavor. Our second is brown butter chocolate chip, which is the first cookie I ever made. And then our third is our vegan chocolate chip. So these are wonderful cookies. Even the gluten-free audience is like, yeah, I'll take the vegan one. It's delicious. And so it's pretty simple. I use whole high quality ingredients. I don't add anything funny. And I've paid attention to each and every step to make sure that the flour is the way it should be. The butter is the best quality and the eggs are the highest quality if it has eggs that we could use. That's it. It's not a secret.
Yeah. I love that. I love that, as you mentioned, it's a dessert. which is awesome that you've created this cookie that is a dessert. So it feels like an indulgence, it's a treat, but at the same time, you're using real whole ingredients. So you feel better about it. It's not going to have like the same effects as eating the chips ahoy cookie that you mentioned, you feel good about it. It tastes delicious. It tastes better, honestly. Using real whole ingredients in your desserts tastes better than using the low quality ingredients. We're used to the low quality ingredients. So when you have like an actual real dessert with whole foods, you notice a difference and it's worth every penny, in my opinion. I will pay for that all day long because it's better for my health, better for my taste buds. I commend you for that. That's amazing. And since it is May, which is Celiac Awareness Month, I would like to touch a little bit on some tips, I suppose. So you yourself went through a journey, I'm sure. It took a while to get a diagnosis. It was a lot of testing and struggles along the way. So what would be your advice to anyone who's newly diagnosed with celiac disease, suspects they have it, and maybe are fighting for a diagnosis, are struggling with symptoms that you had and aren't sure what's going on? What would be your biggest tips, I guess, for them to kind of figure out what to do next?
That is a good question. Obviously, work with your healthcare professional. I will say that I learned through the process. It did take me like nearly a full year to get the diagnosis. It can be very tricky to diagnose. I had to go in for basically a surgery before they found the antibodies in my blood. And I had to be knocked out and everything and take time off work. It's a big deal when they had already done the blood tests. All of my blood tests always come back negative. I would say if it's something that you suspect, I think that this podcast will probably help realize that gluten is in everything. I was drinking Diet Coke every single day at 3 o'clock because I had a long day. I'd been at work since 5 a.m. or had been up since 5 a.m. So at 3 o'clock, I would go get caffeine. Instead of having coffee, I would have Diet Coke. And that was, making me sick and aggravating my symptoms, not knowing why, because Diet Coke is basically 99% water, right? So you're like not thinking that you're poisoning yourself from a beverage and realizing that gluten is in everything. So if it is something that you think if it's a possibility, do what I did. Just eat fruits and vegetables, like just stay in the produce aisle, meat from a butcher, like not meat from the refrigerated section, meat from like behind the counter, and do that for 48 hours and see if it changes anything. If it does, you probably have celiac disease because what you've just done is taken all of the process, like anything processed out of your diet. And if anything processed is going to have gluten in it, unless it has the label certified gluten-free, the odds of it having gluten in it are very high. And so that would be my suggestion is like, you can't have a packaged good. Go eat some salad and some veggies and some meat for a couple of days and see if that makes you feel better. And maybe if you don't feel better, then just remove eggs or remove dairy and eggs, basically do that diet where it's just whole foods and then add them back slowly and see which one it is, would be my recommendation. Yeah. If you're struggling with your doctors. Because I know so many people who are like, I love your cookies. I don't have celiac disease, but I don't feel good when I eat gluten. That might just mean not that you have celiac disease, but it's just very hard to diagnose. So if you are not eating gluten and that your body feels better, obviously you have something there. It just might not be something that the tests are able to detect.
And then there's that component too of like there is celiac disease, there is a gluten sensitivity, there is even a wheat allergy. So there are several different things that it could be. But at the end of the day, removing gluten is the solution to all of them to manage your symptoms. And then, of course, work on improving your gut health. Because in your situation, you mentioned how removing gluten helped significantly. But have you done other things as well to like work on your health to improve your symptoms further, or was removing gluten like the key?
Removing gluten is the key. I will say that because I have celiac disease and it is an autoimmune disease, so every time I get gluten accidentally, I create antibodies that attack my colon. So it is permanent. I will say that it is amazing. I've learned a lot about how important your gut is to your immune system. And I will say, I will never be as resilient to like recovering from colds and just having a fully functional immune system that I had in my 20s as a child, now that I have this disease, because my immune system is compromised because of this, because it attacks my gut. I know when my gut is not healthy, I just know. And I'm like, you drink probiotics. I eat a lot of yogurt, anything that can help with balancing your gut, eating whole foods, even just not eating at all. Sometimes that helps tremendously. Just like being like, I'm not going to eat anything today and let everything settle out. But I am very aware of my gut and what's going on. I will say that having celiac disease and being 100% gluten-free is 99% of the battle. But that also, because I am so sensitive and I have the disease, it eliminates most of those bad things I can't eat anyway. Like all the things that, maybe aren't very good for you, I can't have. I can't come home and have a glass of beer. I can't eat a lot of any processed foods. I can't have soda. All those things that would really agitate your gut are things that having celiac disease fixes for you.
That's true. And I do have an episode on gluten because the gluten in North America isn't truly gluten anyway. For the most part, it is very highly processed. The nutritious portion of it has been removed. It is heavily sprayed with pesticides. So I will also link that episode if anyone wants to learn more about gluten and why it's damaging to your health, likely celiac disease or not. But thank you for sharing your journey with us, all of the things about your cookies. And I would love to know where we can find Mightylicious so people can try them.
Yeah, we are sold at a variety of retailers around the United States. We're in Giant Foods on the East Coast. We're in Walmart in the Northeast region. We are in H-E-B in Texas. We're in Hy-Vee. We're in a lot of independent specialty stores, too many for me to remember. But if you can't find us at your local grocery store, you can find us on Amazon. And you can also order directly from our website, Mightylicious.com. Of course, please buy things from H-E-B and from Walmart. That helps our brand. But if we bake frequently, we don't bake huge quantities and let our products sit there. We bake every 2 weeks to every week, depending on the season. So if you're ordering from us, we're shipping it directly from our warehouse. So you're getting fresh baked product.
That's the best. Everyone wants a fresh cookie.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite way to eat the cookie? Do you eat it like with a tea? Do you heat it up, or what's your trick? Or just right out the box?
I like cookies and coffee. So many of my cookies go so well with coffee. You certainly can have them with tea. We have a wonderful brown butter shortbread cookie that's lovely with tea. But yeah, sort of any of my cookies with a cup of coffee are wonderful. Certainly if you're a kid, milk. They are wonderful in ice cream as well. Crumbled over ice cream, and they're wonderful because if you have celiac disease, you often don't get to participate in a lot of those fun flavors like Oreo or cookie dough. So crumble some of these cookies on top of your vanilla ice cream. It's wonderful.
Oh, that's so good. Actually, one of my favorite treats is to have like a cookie sandwich. So like with ice cream in between two cookies. I would definitely suggest giving that a try if you haven't. And anyone listening, head out to Walmart or any of the other places you mentioned, or buy right from Mightylicious website to get the freshest cookies. And thank you for creating a delicious gluten-free treat that all of us can enjoy, and making it with whole food ingredients. You're using ingredients that aren't going to make the immune system worse, because as you mentioned, gut health, immune health are all connected. If you have an autoimmune condition, strengthening that gut health is very important, and you can still enjoy cookies and treats all along the way. You don't have to be restricted. So thank you for sharing your experience with celiac disease and your cookies with us. It has been a pleasure speaking with you today, Carolyn.
Thank you so much.
Did you learn something new and useful today? If the answer is a big, resounding hell yeah, do me a favor. Subscribe to this podcast. Even better, toss a rating in there too. It helps more bloated babes discover this show and lets me keep bringing you this free, gut-loving content every single week. And hey, don't be greedy. Share this episode with your bestie who's always unbuttoning her pants after dinner. She will love you even more for it. Thanks for hanging out with me and showing your gut some love. Keep on putting what you learn into practice, and you will be bloat-free in no time. Catch you in the next one. Bye.